Hello again. Every year, the United Kingdom has been giving China £70 million as part of our overseas aid. Now this has been cut to only £1 million a year. Many of us, when we watch the way that China is doing all it can to take over African countries, and not to mention gaining influence in Britain in various sinister ways, find ourselves wholly unable to understand why we should give them either £70 million or just £1 million a year. I mean, it's a pretty dreadful dictatorship, but there. I mean, the Chinese have money to spare for plenty of nuclear weapons, and they've also sent men into space as well. It's not as though they are short of money or technological expertise or anything else. Another large country with a space program, they've sent rockets to the moon and they're currently planning to send a spaceship into orbit around Venus. A few years ago, they managed to get a spaceship to orbit around Mars the first time, which is the first nation ever to manage that on the first go, is India. Although we technically don't send them foreign aid anymore, we now giving them £100 million to stimulate jobs in their country. Yes, you heard that right. At a time when there is a looming problem with unemployment right here in Britain, we are giving India £100 million to help them create jobs in the poorer parts of the country. The title of this video, of course, what happens to overseas aid, is pretty rhetorical. We all know, or at the very least strongly suspect, that we already have the answer to this question. Every year, Britain gives away £14 billion to other countries. That is £14,000 million. The top five recipients of this enormous amount of taxpayers' money are Afghanistan, Ethiopia, Pakistan, Syria, and Nigeria. By an unhappy coincidence, these five countries just happen to be among the most corrupt in the world. Nigeria, I mean, seriously. What happens to the money sent to Nigeria? I'm guessing, without looking too closely into the matter, that an awful lot of it is stolen by corrupt officials. What about Ethiopia? Well, I suppose that most of the money that goes there is diverted to buy weapons and to provide food for the army. Syria probably goes straight into a Swiss bank account operated by a relative of President Assad's. Afghanistan buys guns for the Taliban. Pakistan, that will be stolen. There's plenty of evidence to show that this is not just a case of my being cynical. I give links in the description to this video to a few news items. A quick search on the internet will show countless other similar ones. The money sent to these countries benefits few ordinary people, and it often causes more harm than good. We remember the terrible affair of the Live Aid concert in 1985, where millions of pounds were raised and just handed over to Mengistu, who was the vicious dictator in charge of Ethiopia at that time. The money was used to fund genocide and armed soldiers fighting a bitter civil war against the breakaway province of Eritrea. Handing money over to corrupt dictatorships is seldom a good idea. All else apart, I have an idea that if thousands of millions of pounds is to be distributed, then it might be more profitably spent in our own country. We are in the worst financial situation for many years, and already the Treasury is scratching its head and wondering where they can borrow money from to pay for the next harebrained scheme connected with the COVID pandemic. I have a radical idea, which is instead of sending off £14,000 million to Africa and Asia, we spent it on projects in Britain to help some of the millions of people who have suffered over the past year or so by losing their jobs and livelihoods. Instead of creating jobs in India, he thinks that it would be a good idea to create some jobs in England. I'm all in favour of charity, but not the enforced kind, which is run by our government, whereby your taxes are taken from you and then sent off to China and Nigeria without your having any say in the matter. I think that in the present state of the economy, sending money to countries which have nuclear weapons and the sending rockets into space to explore the solar system is probably a luxury we can ill afford.